Adoption agenda.
Adopted.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor? New business recommendation.
The council receives an update on North Winds Wellness Center property for information.
Can I have a seconder?
Second.
Discussion. Chris, do you want to enlighten us?
Yeah,
on
thanks,
this?
Your Worship. I'll keep this short and sweet. We sent out a letter to Northwinds on September 20th demanding that they either begin cleanup work on the property or provide us with an action plan. That has gone unanswered. A second letter has gone out on October 22nd with an open-ended same sort of thing. Begin cleaning up the property or provide the village with an action plan as to what your intentions are.
So did these letters go to the First Nation Health Authority?
No, they went to, and it was our law firm that sort of recommended who they should go to, so they went to the executive director. The first letter went to the executive director and the person we believe to be the president of the Northwinds board. The most recent ones went to the executive director and everybody listed on the corporate registry as being board members. So,
Okay, what about the ministry? Was anybody emailed the letter to?
no, recommendation from the lawyers are there is that we wait to see if there's any response from the organization before we start going further up the food chain.
Because I have on good authority that they'll be building out at Northwinds, their place out in Farmington.
I saw that as well, yeah. So,
Money?
I know that there seems to be an awful lot of push to have this completed. I know that the wheels turn slowly, even though we're very anxious about what we're dealing with. And I want to have a good understanding of this. I know in Dawson Creek when they had fire and it was downtown, the remnants of that sat there for a very, very long time. And it was a slow process, but eventually it was taken care of. And I'm wondering if that time has passed, that we don't deal with things like that anymore. What has changed?
Which is a hazard.
It was a hazard for Dawson Creek back then.
They did
We're
build
not
it.
Dawson Creek, we're Coos.
No, but they don't have a river. Their land wasn't sloped to the river.
No, I'm saying that this is not Dawson Creek, this is Coos, and this is the way we would like it to be done, right?
But it's a we would be like it kind of thing when you're
Yeah.
asking for a process. The insurance is involved in this, and insurance has its own way of dealing with things. We know. I mean, we just went through a hailstorm. There was no arguments about that, but it was a slow process. It wasn't snap to it. This fire occurred May.
May the 12th, I believe, if not the correct date, it was definitely around that second week.
And here we are, it's going to run into November. So, I mean, really, are we allowing the process to happen, or are we pushing what we want?
Yeah, but we also haven't been hearing back from them as well.
It would be
But
nice.
it's insurance that you're waiting. Insurance is something between the owner and the
But
insurer.
Northwinds can say they're dealing with the insurance company. They can say, we'll get back to you. They can say many things to us, but we have heard deaf ears. Nothing since the first letter went out. I even asked him to, in the airport, if he could make sure that he keeps in contact with Chris. I asked him in Lee's restaurant to make sure he stays in the loop with Chris, so we know what's going on. He has failed to do that. So, and
He
that's,
hasn't heard from them.
Well,
Or it's negative.
he can at least let us know that.
give us a heads up, right? Just give us a heads up, because as we sit right now, we're worried that we have to end up cleaning that property. Well, I am anyway, I don't know about the rest of council, but I feel, are we gonna be stuck with this property? Is the town actually gonna be able to afford to be able to do this? No! Is it fair that the taxpayers have to pay for this building to be cleaned up because they purchased it for $1? I don't think that's fair. He could at least have the courtesy to give us a letter and let us know what's going on.
So you're asking for courtesy. So, yeah, but you're talking about going onto somebody's property. That, this is where the fallback comes on, is that it's villages, going to be the village's responsibility at some point or another if we don't get what we expect.
Or if the insurance doesn't come to.
If the insurance doesn't come to, do we go on people's private property and clean up things?
If we have a remedial action
You know,
process done properly.
we were going to do that to the other place here in town. So
And he was Johnny on the spot getting
are,
cleaned up.
are we not going to do the same thing to a similar situation just because they're owned by First Nations?
No,
that isn't-
nobody's getting referral down.
That isn't my question.
Maybe to add to that, Worship Council here, the village, in my view, the administration's view, that property is a danger to the public. There's burnt down walls, the remaining pieces of the structure are unstable. It can't fall down if somebody goes in there. I mean, there's everything, broken glass. It's definitely a danger to the public. The municipality has a responsibility to, to have that protected. However, it is right now the responsibility of the owner. I believe the case you're talking about in Dawson Creek, that was cleaned up by the municipality, but only after the property transferred to the municipality through the tax sale process. So, don't quote me on that, but, judging by what you're saying, the delay and so on and so forth, I don't know, this is your guys' decision to make for sure, but if it's in the community's best interest to leave that sitting there for 4 years like that, if the answer is no. Speaking to the insurance, and this was a conversation I had with the other gentleman on the other property, because, similar comments were made, well, insurance isn't all lined up yet. And my comment to that individual was, sir, your behind the scenes financial considerations aren't the municipality's concern. It's your property, whether you pay or your insurance company pays, is not, our issue to deal with. You are the property owner, you are required to clean it up. Who pays for that behind the scenes? Not a consideration, whether you borrow money from your parents or your insurance company pays. Our concern is that be cleaned up to, for the safety of the community. Similar situation here.
Well, considering the stuff that debris is blowing into a business that pays taxes and is being affected, something needs to be done with it.
I've had, at council's request, I've had several conversations with environmental technicians on it. A lot of them were sort of confused as to where to begin, because it could be anything in there.
Or because he's practicing.
Yeah, they did comment that in structure fires, more toxins are released than if it was just a standard demolition. The final word I got from that was from, a guy who specializes in this. He works out of Kamloops, and he said, well, if we're unsure, what the extent of testing is, and he says it can go anything. I mean, they can test for millions of particles in all kinds of stuff. He said he recommends that we approach the PRRD and find out where the material is likely going to be dumped, and then work backwards from there to say if it's going to be dumped at, Bessborough, what are the testing requirements for that, and he could put together a package for us. And I've already made those calls. I'm just waiting on the specs from the PRRD. So they all felt though that given the proximity to the river and so on and so forth, that the potential was there. But also due to the soil type and, the grassy hill, that there probably wasn't, contaminants leaking into the river to the point of killing fish or destroying the watershed or that type of thing. But all the consultants I spoke to said it's reasonable to assume that some stuff has gotten into the ground as a result of that.
Oh, totally.
I'm thinking that if the village does not play the advocate role of getting this facility cleaned up, then are we not part liable for the prolonged cleanup if it ever happens?
Or if anything happens down there.
Yeah.
I would say that as private property owner, that the private property owner is quite liable for things that are going on in
They
that.
also could fall back on us as well.
Right now, my understanding is no, but, you know, you guys have to look at whether or not, and so the municipality has a lot of rights in our, you know, our sort of camp. If council determines that this is a danger to the community, whether it be sort of a private property owned by an organization or a particular house, you know, say somebody's house is falling down and they'll say, it's my property. If you guys determine that, yeah, we don't want that falling on the street and somebody walking by, we can exercise our rights and our authority to go in there and clean it up, send them the bill. The legal question starts though, there's a process to follow there through remedial action. If we don't follow that legal process as set out in the charter and the Local Government Act, according to our lawyers, we then lose the ability to seek recourse to cover the funds. We can still go in and clean it up, but we're acknowledging that we're gonna eat the cost. So in this one, considering the quotes we've received, which are all between the $800 and $1.2 million to clean that up, we want to ensure that if you guys exercise your authority to clean this up as a danger to the community, that we do it right, and we absolutely have the option to pursue them for the cost of it, so.
I would just say let the lawyers handle it, right? Let the lawyers handle it, and like, we don't want to make an enemy, but I know that with the TLE properties, there's other businesses that are going to Fort St. John, Chetland, Timber Ridge. Now, if they have a building burned down, is it going to be the same situation? They just ignore us? That's my concern. So I think that everybody should be aware of this is going on.
So right now, you know, part of this exercise of having this on the agenda was to formally put it there that you know, the municipality, through our lawyers, have notified them formally that we want something to happen. The entire cleanup process is fully public. So if we exercise that right under remedial action, that has to happen entirely publicly at council meetings. But our lawyers felt that, you know, sending a couple of letters saying, guys, we don't want to have to go down this road, come to the table and work with us, either get it done or at least tell us what your plans are. You know, that's where we are now.
I think we have to be very careful, folks. This property, as we know, is owned by First Nations, right? This, what's happening here, is no way indicative of every band or group of First Nations that are around our country, right? We can't tar them with the one brush, right? This is this particular group that we're dealing with, and it should no way reflect on the other bands with whom we may be dealing.
But they need to be aware.
Who needs to be aware?
The rest of the mayors, the rest of the council, the rest of the area. People in the Peace River area need to realize what's going on.
For
What they're doing to us right now, they're not even talking to us. They're-
Northwinds, right?
Yes, Northwinds. But the Northwinds is also made up of how many bands, Chris?
It is a Treaty 8 initiative, Your Worship.
So can you clarify that a bit? I mean, Treaty 8 is huge.
So I guess the only thing I can say to clarify that is that the original seed name of the organization was the Treaty 8 Healing Center on their society registry. And to my knowledge, the members of the board are Treaty 8 First Nations members or band council.
I don't see that at all. I could be called BC Safety Service, doesn't mean I represent all of BC, right? Just because you have the name Treaty 8 in your name doesn't reflect ownership.
The corporate office of the organization too is also listed as the West Moberly First Nations office in West Moberly, so they're sharing the corporate office as well. The lawyers were specific in that too, that they are, you know, a distinct organization, corporation, I guess, under the Societies Act, so there is some arm's length separation there, but yeah.
So they are a
and
society under West Moberly.
I believe so. So right now, we are, you know, our communication, our demands are going to the organization, that first level being Northwinds. No communication has gone to any of the other bands,
First
including
Nations
West
Health
Mobility.
Authority.
Yeah, including
Yeah,
West
but-
Mobility where their offices are located, so.
Would it be beneficial if we had someone go down and see if we could set up an appointment and chat with them about this?
Are we to have it here in the chambers, or should we maybe make a,
No,
to go down and have a conversation with them?
Yeah,
Westmo and see what's going on?
yeah. I mean, we could, ask if they'd be interested in having a conversation face to face.
Well, the board, the council, the board of Northwoods.
Well, I would go right down to, to the West Mobley band and.
But we gotta find out for sure if they're still part of it. Maybe they walked away. We don't know if all the bands have walked away.
I
We don't know, right?
I think that's the first thing you gotta know. No, who owns the building? Who is the owners behind Northwinds?
The board. It's a society.
And is the
And
society
who are they
still
being paid
owned
for?
by West Mobley?
Well, we gotta find that. And who's paying them? Who's paying for that? We know that the First Nations Authority, Health Authority is giving the money, but we don't know if they're the total contributor. Right?
Yeah.
I just think we should let the lawyers handle it, and maybe you should try and set up a meeting for us to,
But
Go
where are
see
you
them.
going with it if you say just let the lawyers handle it? To what end?
well, their lawyer to our lawyer. We have letters already gone out. They're not answering them, so what's the next step do we do?
Do they have a lawyer responding to our lawyer?
No, nobody's responding to us.
They're never going to know.
Not at all.
It could be nice to say, sorry, you're still in
Let-
process.
We've had complaint letters.
Let's just see if we can go down for a coffee and have a pleasant discussion and try and discuss this. And come to establish some sort of communication.
Yes.
Well, their meeting at Northwinds is November 29th, I think it is. November 29th, they didn't have a little invitation.
We didn't get an invitation. And we normally get an invitation.
I don't know. You would think that we would get an invitation. They have property here.
Well, I don't know. If we never got an invitation, I wouldn't be offended because we didn't get one now.
No, I'm not offended either, but the fact is that they're having a big open house on what they're gonna do out there. Are they gonna spend the money on Northwinds and not here? I don't know. And that's what concerns me.
Yes,
Like, I don't want the taxpayers having to pay this.
absolutely. So,
Your worship, if I may, I think Councillor Drover is bringing up a really interesting, there's no bad discussions in this so far, and if our letters aren't being answered, then, meeting with anybody and everybody we can on this initiative to talk how we figure this out, how we make this work. This is a big deal. We're talking $1 million. I don't think there's such thing as a bad conversation at this point, especially this early on as well, so. If you guys would entertain that, I'd be more than happy to reach out to those folks and try and set up.
I'm all in favor for that. Do you want a motion for that, Chris?
Yeah, please.
I'll make a motion.
What do you say in the motion?
We meet with them to see if we can come to a consensus.
Meet with,
Northwinds,
And the First Nations Health Authority.
whatever she said.
second?
Second.
All in favor? Okay, so bylaws, number 1 recommendation.
Yeah. Council gives fourth reading of the dog bylaw number 1020, 2019, tax exemption.
Do I have a seconder? Any discussion? All in favor?
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.